Hello from Mission Alive. Welcome to the MSC Mission Office. Just recently I've been telling a number of stories about places where I've been and the difficulties faced there in bringing the good news to people and bringing pastoral care to people who have accepted the faith. I was reflecting on that in light of the work that I'm doing now in the Mission Office, and I realised that much of my experience is serving me well in understanding the situation where we have projects and the people involved in them. The difficulty of transport is one. Just to get a tank and supplies to a place can often be rather difficult, and that can take time. For instance, this year we were funding some water tanks for two places in the Solomon Islands, both of which I know and understand the situation there. At the time, one of the places asked for 10 tanks, so we didn't have enough funds available in the clean water bucket at the time. So we said, we'll send enough for 5. I was grateful for that and said, can we have the money for the other 5? Because we only want to do one shipment from Honiara rather than try to do 2. That would be more expensive and more difficult. So we said, we'll have to wait. So they said, yes, we will wait, keep the money in the bank, and when we get the money for the other 5, then we'll ship the whole 10 tanks together. In the meanwhile, the people will start work on the base work for the tanks. So that's a real situation, and we can accept it because the experience that we've had in those places. In other places, for instance, with drilling for water, one was drilled in a place where they did find water, but it was a seminary in Africa. It was on top of a hill. And when they drilled down, they got water. It was just a sort of a bubble of water where water had collected over a long period of time, and they pumped it dry. So they wanted to put down a second bore, and we said, you'll have to go down a long way to find water again. Either you go down to lower ground and find water and pump it up, or just use tanks. And I think that place had a lot of rainfall, so it's better to use tanks and a distribution system. So we have to understand the situation in these places so that we can judge, one, whether to give the project or what sort of a project to advise. We use in Vietnam quite a number of reverse osmosis water systems because the water is there in the rivers, but it's polluted because there's many people. There's a lot of chemicals used on the patio, on the gardens. So a lot of the water is polluted and needs to be purified. And when it is, it actually supplies good water to a lot of people. So that is the situation there, whereas in some other places, say in Africa, put down a bore is quite acceptable and works very well. And that too can, as I've said, in places too, when they get water for the household use and personal use, and also for the cattle, because many of those people are cattle people, the women then grow gardens and put food on the table for the family. So that is a good thing too. It's an offshoot of that. It can change a little bit the way of living with fresh food and fresh vegetables. And also it alerts to the men to the fact that this also adds something to the welfare of the family. So there's a lot of circumstances where we need to consider where it is, and other places like to get acquittals for projects. Where the project is out somewhere remote. Often by the time they get the tank or the materials to the place, the receipt has gone missing or it got lost in somehow in the process. And also in some of those places, the people by nature aren't very good at keeping pieces of paper, aren't good at the paperwork, the administration. That's not a judgment, it's just a fact of some cultures are like that because, I mean, us, Western people, we've had many, many generations of keeping records and papers and stuff, whereas a lot of those haven't. And what's important is to get the tank and to have the water for people so that people can live better. So keeping the paperwork and getting it in, and then getting it in also difficult. How do you send the paper? And can they scan it? Can they copy it? Can they send it by email? A lot of these things are not as adequate, but by no means as adequate as we would have in our places. So all of this is part of the mission alive, the difficulties that we have to work with, and that is a fact of life. So we go on with our mission today. Thank you.